Alrighty, everybody, it is currently Thursday, July 17th, 2025, and I'm coming at you live from a speck of pollen that's floating freely in a cool summer breeze. All right, now that we got the niceties out of the way, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Jews. It is a nice, cool summer day. I don't know, if that's true across the country, but it's true where I'm at, and so therefore it's true for everyone else. That's the one thing I've learned in life. If it's true for you, if it's true from your perspective, then it's true for everyone else. All right? That's what I've learned, in my vast life experience. If you're experiencing life a certain way, everyone else is experiencing it the exact same way as you. And so if they don't have the same reaction as you to a certain, issue or subject or whatever, they're out of their mind. Okay? That's that's what I've learned, in my experiences in life. When someone comes at you with a different perspective about something, attack them immediately because that person is a malicious person who is not only malicious but also mentally ill. That is a when someone has a different perspective than you, that person should be put in some sort of institution, some sort of mental institution, because that is clearly an unstable person, and your perspective is the correct one. You should be attacking them immediately. And I'm not just talking about attacking them, verbally, emotionally, or whatever. Attack them physically as well. That's the thing. That's the thing that a lot of people, that's the quiet part they don't say out loud. You know what I mean? You should be attacking them physically. If you have some sort of cup or can on you, some sort of, uh, liquid carrying device, throw that at them immediately, because the splash adds a little bit of extra damage. Throw the, whatever it is, a water bottle, a cup of water, a bottle of beer. If you got something that'll break on impact, like a glass bottle, I would say that's going to be your prime weapon. If someone comes at you with a different opinion, throw that at them immediately. Maybe a brick, if there's a brick nearby, that's a good one. But there's a lot of people in this country that can't throw a brick more than 2 feet. So I'd say stick with something light. Stick with something like a bottle or a cup or a can or something like that. Throw it at them immediately, and hopefully you get them in the eyes. And hopefully it'll sting their eyes a little bit, blind them for a second for enough to and disable them for enough time for you to run up on them, bum rush them real quick and just start scratching at, their face. I would say focus on the face first, focus on the eyes, you know what I mean? Start ripping their teeth out of their face and stuff. Take your thumb and just start digging in their eye, you know what I mean? And then when they put their hands up to guard their face, just start scratching them everywhere else, you know what I mean? Go chimp mode, I'd say. I'd say a top priority, start targeting the genitals. You know what I mean? Whoever it is, start targeting the genitals, rip them off, mutilate them. And then when they put their hands down to cover that, start going for the face again. That is what you should do if someone if someone expresses an opinion or point of view that's slightly different than your own. Attack them physically immediately. You know what I mean? Because sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But sticks and stones do still break your bones, and it does hurt. So I would say do that. Stick with the sticks and stones. You know what I mean? That's that's going to be the phrase of today's episode. Stick with the sticks and stones. You know what I mean? You're not a wordsmith. I'm not a wordsmith. No one really is a wordsmith. Even the most famous wordsmiths, like fucking Shakespeare or whatever, Shakespeare has such a way with words. Well, I can't fucking understand him, so how much of a way with words does he actually fucking have? You know what I mean? He doesn't have a way with words because I don't really know what he's saying most of the time. I've tried I've tried watching Shakespeare before. I watched, and to be fair, most of the things most of the Shakespeare plays that I've watched have been like modern recreations of Shakespeare plays, which I'm sure just makes them even more unintelligible, but you know, the guy does not have a way with words. It's complete nonsense when you're reading Shakespeare. And people are like, "Oh, it's old English. You just need to be more educated." I shouldn't have to, once again, I shouldn't have to get a PhD to be able to understand words. That's one of those things that everyone should be able to understand. That's kind of the point of words. That's kind of the point of language, is that everyone should be able to understand it. So should Shakespeare plays should all be rewritten with only like four different words in them, is what I'm saying. It should be four different words. Um, and one of those words should be one of one of the words, one of the four different words that all the Shakespeare plays are going to be rewritten in. One of them should be it's an important. I don't know if it is a word. I'm sure there's some kind of fancy fucking word for it, that some dweeb knows out there. Actually, it's a propalpalism. That's what is. It's a propalpalism. It's like, okay, dude, whatever it is, put it in Shakespeare, have it be one of four words. And then another one should be fuck, because I think that's a good one. Really gets a bit of emphasis in what he's saying. I've never heard, that's why Shakespeare doesn't move me as much as it moves other people. You know, the guy isn't he's too playful with the words. Sometimes you can't be playful. Sometimes sometimes you have to throw a half-drunk bottle of beer at someone's face and start scratching their eyes out. And I think Shakespeare and the people that, watch his plays and read his plays and stuff like that, they need to understand that. Sometimes and not everything can be flowery and colorful and, beautiful and fucking, opulent or whatever. Sometimes sometimes something just has to be two 300-pound women fist fighting each other in Walmart for the last pack of Pokemon cards so that they can hopefully pay the mortgage on their on their trailer this month. Sometimes shit just has to be that because sometimes that's the way it is. Sometimes the way it is two fucking, massively overweight women have a fucking mop in their hand and they're riding scooters in Walmart, you know what I mean? Riding one of those mobility scooters and they're whacking each other with the fucking mops so that they can get, the last pack of Yu-Gi-Oh cards that hopefully has a rare card in it that they can sell in order to pay for their water bill this month, even though the water is poison. All the water is poison, but they're just trying to pay the goddamn water bill, all right? And I think that's what Shakespeare needs to understand, dude. Shakespeare, if you're listening to this, and I know that you are, start writing plays about that, dude. I think that would be an interesting topic for a play. And if you think about it, like, anyone that's familiar with opera at all, you know, opera's it's not just singing, it's like a full story, right? It's kind of like a singing play. That's how operas are. It's not quite a musical either, because music, I mean, that's just I was talking shit about Shakespeare for a second there. There's nothing worse than a musical, truly. Even for children, dude. There's really nothing worse than a musical. But opera, it's a musical story. It's not a musical, it's a musical story, and a lot of the performers in it they're quite large women, which you'd kind of expect the opposite. You'd kind of expect like a woman, a small woman with a very delicate voice singing all these high notes and stuff, but they're not. There's some big old hosses. There's some there's some big dogs out there, you know what I mean, belting out the truth, all right? You know what I mean? That's cows moo, and the moos are sometimes beautiful. Okay? Sometimes these opera singers, they're quite large, they're large women, but they sing beautifully. And it does make sense if you really think about it because like a hot skinny chick, you know what I mean, a hot, thin woman with big old tits in a beautiful face. She doesn't really have to develop any skills or any real personality, but a big dog, you know what I mean? A girl that's been big her entire life, you know what I mean? Always on the outskirts of, every female social group. A woman like that, she's got to develop some skills. You know what I mean? She's got to be a Urethra Franklin or whatever. She's got to be, and that's why I don't like Taylor Swift personally. That's why I say Taylor Swift doesn't have like real talent like that because she's never been big before. If Taylor Swift ballooned up to let's say 330, you know what I mean? She's a tall chick. Taylor Swift, how tall is she? She's maybe like 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", something around there. That's pretty tall for a woman. So she's got to balloon up to at least 330, maybe in the 400s for her to have any real talent. Only then will Taylor Swift develop real talent. If she balloons up to such a large size that she's forced to develop real talent. Because right now, Taylor Swift, you know what I mean? She's a bit of a Beyonce. She's got, the backup dancers and the backup singers. She's got like the crazy outfits and the theatrics and shit like that. And the reason that works is because she's skinny. You know what I mean? You never see these big boys doing that shit. You never see Big X the plug, you know what I mean? Doing fucking dances on stage. That guy can barely get on the stage in the first place, and the stage can barely handle it. I think if Big X the plug started like dancing on a stage at like a concert or whatever, that would be worse than Astro World. You know what I mean? That would be that would be a bit of a Camp Mystic. You know what I mean? That would that would take a few lives, a few hundred lives, to be quite honest. That would be he would if Big X started dancing on a stage, the impact from his feet would like liquefy the stage. It would literally like pulverize like the metal and the wood and all the shit that they use to make the stage, and it would be a flood. It would just be a flood of fucking like liquefied wood and metal just pounding through the crowd, just like flooding through the crowd. Everyone's nostrils and fucking lungs would be filled instantly if Big X the Plug started dancing on stage. But this skinny bitch, you know what I mean? This Jezebel, Taylor Swift, she's just out there stomping and hooting and hollering and all that shit. And it's not breaking the stage at all. You know what I mean? If it, you know, it's you got to be fat to have real talent like that. If the people in your crowd aren't fearing for their lives that you're going to do a stage dive, you know what I mean? If the people in the crowd aren't like praying to God that you don't jump in the crowd and do a start crowd surfing, right? Then you aren't a talented musical artist. It's just true. The same thing doesn't really apply to comedy as much, but it is true to a certain extent. Like that guy Matt Rife, it's I don't hate Matt Rife because he's successful. I hate him because he's, skinny and or he's in good shape and he's good looking. You can't be funny if that's the case. I'm sorry, it's just true. If you're good looking, you can be one or the other. You can be good looking, but you can't be in shape. You know what I mean? Like there's some big boys out there that are decent looking guys, but they're fat. And that makes them funny. And then you got some of the skinny guys, and those guys are real uggos, right? Like for example, Ari Shafir. That guy's a freak. That's a not that's not a pleasurable viewing experience. Looking at Ari Shafir is in no way a pleasurable viewing experience, and that makes him funny. And that, but you can't be that if you're a musical artist, right? You have to have some sort of attractive feature to you. Like even Lizzo, she was or she is she's quite the flabby gal. She's not, some of those girls that are big like that, they got a little bit of titties, they got a little bit of ass. Lizzo does not have that. She looks like a melting ice cream cone. She looks like that one motherfucker from Monsters versus Aliens. Like that's that's the type of look that Lizzo has going on. But she's got a pretty face, right? And I think that that makes for a good musical artist. Same goes for Taylor Swift. I think even if Taylor Swift gets up to 4 bills or something like that, she's still going to be, facially a very or a somewhat attractive woman. And I think that's the thing we have to acknowledge as a society. It's there's these two extremes where it's like being fat is perfectly okay and you shouldn't worry about being 500 pounds. And then there's the other extreme of like everyone should be in great shape. I think there's a little more of a spectrum there. It's like you can be fat, you can be 500 pounds, you know what I mean? You can be Joey Diaz, but you have to be Joey Diaz if you're that kind of weight. And I think that's what we need to acknowledge as a society. And we also need to acknowledge that Joey Diaz is only Joey Diaz because he is that weight, dude. Joey Diaz is only that funny. Tim Dillon, if Tim Dillon was a fucking twink, you know what I mean? Or really anything other than he is now, he wouldn't be funny, dude. It's just something about being that size. It makes you just a funny fucking person. And it makes you have to develop a certain amount of talent. A lot of people, a lot of them don't. A lot of them don't develop any talent other than somehow consuming 500 grams of sugar a day and not dying. That's the talent of most fat people in this country. That's the talent that they've developed. The talent that they've developed is eating an ungodly amount of cholesterol and saturated fat and just sugar and just stressing every ounce of their body all the time with their diet. You know what I mean? Stressing their stomach, their liver, their pancreas, just constantly and somehow not being dead. That's the talent of most fat people in this country. You know, the talent they've developed is somehow putting all the worst things in their body, right? All the most horrible things that you can, right? The most processed food possible, all the artificial dyes, all the things that like fuck with your hormones. They put that stuff in their body constantly and somehow are not dead. Meanwhile, you got a dude who like runs ultra marathons and fucking collapses of a heart attack one day. And that is a talent. I mean, it's seriously, not everyone can do that. That is a special talent that some people just have. Some people just have like the talent to have precisely zero muscle in their body, to be 98% body fat. You know what I mean? Even their bones are starting to get rubbery because they're turning into fat. Like there are some people out there that are like that who are, I mean, not perfectly fine. They can't be perfectly fine, but they're still alive, you know, and that counts for something. And I don't think people want to acknowledge that is a skill. That is a skill that somehow these people they were either born with or they developed it over time, but it is a fucking skill, dude. Because I've been the fattest I've ever been was like 230 pounds, and I am a fairly short guy, so I would say if you're like 6 foot, then that was maybe equivalent to being like 280, 300, somewhere around there. You know what I mean? If we're talking relative size, like a 6 foot dude being around 300 pounds, and even that's like it's like a lot of people would consider that in shape, you know, especially the type of fat I was. Like I wasn't a Lizzo fat. I wasn't a melting ice cream cone fat. I had a bit of muscle on there. I had a bit of shape to me. It wasn't a great shape. It wasn't a very fun shape to be or to look at. And even then, just looking back on it, I was like, dude, I just felt like shit constantly. I was like, my stomach always hurt. My fucking, you know, my entire digestive tract, dude, from my mouth to my fucking anus. All of it like just felt uncomfortable constantly. You can't sleep. There's really not a comfortable position to sleep in, right? When you're that type of fat. Like you sleep on your side and it's like your stomach is like weighing itself down on one side, right? So you can't sleep on your side. You certainly can't sleep on your belly because that's just, I mean, it's fucking impossible, right? It's like trying to sleep flat with like a fucking rock attached to your stomach. Right? And you can't sleep on your back because then all your fat like starts to like fall towards your face and it just chokes you all night. So when you're that type of size, it's just generally uncomfortable. And somehow these people that are, you know, twice the size that I was, they're able to function still, which is just, I mean, it's shocking, right? Like a lot of people talk shit about, you know, meth addicts or heroin addicts or just drug addicts in general. And it's like, dude, I mean, it's not a great lifestyle. I don't want that type of shit around me, but it is kind of impressive, dude. It is kind of impressive that you can completely destroy your mind and body and still somehow physically function. They're not functioning well. They're not amazing at functioning on a physical level or a societal level. They can still function to a certain degree. And I think that's something people don't give them enough credit for. You know, everyone's always shitting on these guys. Everyone is always shitting on the people who smoke meth and like turn their brains into applesauce and fucking like rot their bodies alive. And it's not a great thing. It's not a great thing to do to yourself, but the fact that they're still able to function, I don't know if it says more about them or more about meth, right? Because I think it says a fair bit about meth that somehow your body and mind have been completely destroyed. Like there's no coming back. A lot of these people, you know, not just meth, you know, fentanyl as well. They've destroyed themselves so much that there's literally no coming back. But the drug that they're doing I guess makes them feel so good that they keep somehow doing it, dude. They're zombies. They're literal zombies. They're fucking, you know what I mean? They go to like pull out a $1 bill out of their wallet and their finger falls off, right? And somehow they keep it pushing because they just love meth that much. That's a type of dedication, you know. It's Navy. It's more than Navy SEAL dedication. You know what I mean? These bitch ass SEALs, they get shot one or two times, and they're like, "Fucking take me out, coach." Meanwhile, a meth addict, his fucking arm is like falling off his body. His arm is being held up together by the t-shirt that he's wearing and a few tendons that are in his arm, right? And somehow he manages to steal a fucking half ton of copper from a job site or whatever. Right? Like that's dedication, dude. That's really having that dog in you. And that people don't talk about that enough. People don't acknowledge that enough, that these people, love them or hate them, they're doing it, dude. They're putting in that work. They're getting it every single day, you know. Goggins is up here. Goggins just lost like 400 pounds in a month or whatever he did, dude. A meth addict could do that shit in 2 weeks, dude. If you told a meth addict that at the end of Navy SEAL training was a big old pile of meth, I don't know anything about meth. I don't know what the fuck they do. But if you told them that was there at the end of the training, they'd get through that shit like a breeze, dude. And they wouldn't go on Joe Rogan talking about, yeah, dude, I survived Navy SEAL training. I survived buds or whatever. No, they wouldn't be doing that. You know what they'd be doing? They'd be sitting in an abandoned house smoking meth because they have a dedication to it. All right. And it's about time we acknowledge that dedication. No one else acknowledges it, right? No one else acknowledges the work they're putting in because it's hard. It's tough. You know what I mean? Most of these guys, these aren't Nepo methods. These guys, Most of these people come from very tough backgrounds, hence why they're doing meth in the first place. But they come from they come from very tough backgrounds and still somehow they manage to pull themselves out of that. And a lot of these guys, they make a lot of money. Like I was doing an episode about the cartels one time, and I was looking up like how much these drugs cost so that I could like understand how much the cartels are making, dude. And a meth addict or a meth habit is like $40,000 a year or something insane like that. Like a the average habit that like someone who's severely addicted to meth, that costs them about $40,000 a year. That's that's pretty fucking impressive, dude. Like that's more than a minimum wage. These guys are making more than minimum wage while being high on meth constantly. These guys, that's more than like $15 an hour. Like if you worked full time making $15 an hour, you still wouldn't make $40,000 a year. And these guys are managing to do more than that, while their minds and bodies literally melt into the fucking earth. Right? And that's the type of dedication that you have to admire and appreciate, you know. I don't want to if I go to like one of these motivational speaker conferences, I don't want Tony Robbins or fucking David Goggins or Jocko Willink or whatever talking about you need to put in that work. You need to believe in yourself and put in that work, dude. I want a meth head. I want a meth head up there talking about, hey, fucking look, I'm not telling you to do meth, right? But choose something and just be that purely addicted to it, dude. Have that love of it. Have that just deep desire to go out and get that shit. That's who I want to hear from. I want to hear from a meth head. I want to hear from some dude who went to fucking Afghanistan and fucking killed a bunch of kids. I don't want to hear from that asshole. I want to hear from a good, hardworking American meth head who put in that work and now has a nice abandoned house, you know, on the outskirts of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and is just having the time of their life tweaking all day and night. That's who I want to hear from. I don't want to hear from these other motherfuckers. I want to hear from the guy who was abused his entire life and still somehow managed to make $50,000 a year so that he could support his meth habit. That's that's who I want to that's who I want to hear, you know, motivating me. Because that guy you hear from like, you know, Jocko Willink and David Goggins and these guys like that and they're like, "Your life is gonna suck. Your life is gonna suck and that's just gonna be it." You talk to a meth head, dude, they might not be living the best life, but they enjoy every single second of it. They enjoy it from the time they wake up to the time they go to sleep, dude. They're dedicated to one thing, and that's true fulfillment. You know what I mean? That's true personal enlightenment. That is what these guys have achieved. They have achieved self actualization. You know what I mean? They're truly dedicated to this one thing and they're never gonna get it up, dude. No matter how many times their fucking kids try to put them in rehab or whatever, or how many times their parents try to put them in rehab, they're gonna break out of that rehab no matter what city you put them in, dude. You could put them in fucking the fanciest city in America, you know what I mean? You could put them in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. You could put them in a rehab there, you know what I mean? A city where like the average house price is fucking $8 billion. You could put them there, and they're still going to manage to escape a state-of-the-art rehab facility and they're still going to go out there, you know what I mean? And they're going to find that goddamn meth because that is what fulfills them. And I think we as a country need to acknowledge that. We as a people, you know, we don't be doing meth. Not what I'm saying here, but you need to take some notes there. You know, it's all these other guys. You know, David Goggins has to like write books and go on podcasts and do shit that he probably doesn't like doing in order to make money. But these meth heads, they probably love doing that shit, dude. They're like modern day Comanches. They ride around in a fucking 2004 Toyota Camry with no doors, and they pull up on a construction site and they go, "Hi, hi, hi, hi," and they start raiding that shit, grabbing fucking, you know, Milwaukee tools and copper and whatever the fuck else they can get their hands on. They live that lifestyle. That's the lifestyle they live, you know. These ex-soldiers, these ex-Navy SEAL type of guys, they gave up that lifestyle. They gave up the Navy SEAL lifestyle. You'll never meet a meth head that gave up that fucking lifestyle, a real meth head, not one of these faking ass bitches, dude. Not one of these people that like did it for a couple of years and now they're like telling their story or whatever, being like, I was addicted to meth. No. These guys are dedicated to the fucking game. All right. These guys that I'm talking about, these guys are dedicated to the fucking to the lifestyle, dude. They don't give a shit. Don't give a shit about nobody else, dude. They're getting out there and they're putting in that fucking work. And you need to acknowledge that and appreciate that and start taking some notes, dude. A black woman is speaking, listen and learn. Yeah, there's a few things you can learn from a black woman, right? Like how to get Section 8 housing and how to get $800 a month in EBT benefits. Those are some things you can learn from a black woman or from a nice skinny meth head, dude, no matter what the color is. That's the thing about these drug addicts, dude. You'll never meet like a racist meth head. They might say the N-word a whole bunch. That is a thing I've heard they do. I have heard that they like saying that word, you know what I mean? They're big fans of it. They like sitting on a street corner and just like shaking violently and saying the N-word. But you'll never meet one that's actually racist, dude. And that's a beautiful thing. Malcolm X, MLK, fucking, JFK, all these leaders, all these people who, signed bills and laws into the fucking, you know, made civil rights legal, right? And made racial discrimination illegal. All these guys, they did all that work, and there's still, I mean, so much racism in this country. But you meet a fucking meth head, and they go, "Hey, this guy has meth." They're not gonna ask you that guy's skin color. You meet a meth head, and you go, "Hey, I've got some free meth for you." They don't care if you're fucking. They don't care where you're from. They don't care if you're a legal immigrant, an illegal immigrant. They don't give a shit, dude. Any walk of life, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, whatever. That they're happy to see you. Okay, and that's a lesson we need to learn from them. They're so dedicated. They're so dedicated to this thing that racism has completely left their body in just about every way, shape, or form. I know a lot of them are in like neo-Nazi gangs and shit like that, but they're not really racist. You know what I mean? That's just the name. That's just the name of the game, right? It's just like the name of they had to choose like a cool white name, and there's not a lot of cool white names to pick from, you know what I mean? All the cool white names have been taken by like militias or whatever. All the cool like white shit, right? Like the 1776 or the Benjamin Franklin militia or whatever. All that shit's already been taken, so they kind of have to choose from the next best option, and unfortunately, the next best option is the Nazis. They're just choosing the name, all right? It's just a name, guys. It's words. Words have no meaning, okay? Words don't have any meaning, and these guys know that. And I just think we all need to learn from them. We all need to learn not from their mistakes. That's not what I'm saying here. These guys, I'm sure they've made a lot of mistakes in their life. I'm sure their lives have been riddled with poor decisions and stuff like that. But look at their positive decisions, dude. Look at all the things they did right. And learn from that and acknowledge it and appreciate it and apply it to your aspect of life. Whatever it is, whatever you're doing in life, whether you're a fucking, a salesman or you trade stocks or you're an accountant or whatever. Learn from the meth heads, dude. Learn about the dedication they have to their craft and acknowledge and appreciate it, dude. Acknowledge and appreciate these people that have been so long forgotten. For we've kind of abandoned these people, society as a whole, the government, we've abandoned these people. We've left them in the dust, but I think they have a vast wealth of knowledge. I think they have a lot in there that we can learn from them. A lot of, maybe not wisdom. I don't think these are the wisest people in the world, but I do think they have a fair amount of knowledge. I think they have a fair amount of knowledge that can be applied to any aspect of life, whether you're on meth or not. And look, maybe for you, meth is the right thing to do. Maybe for you, as a person, sparking up a fucking an empty light bulb full of crystal is the right thing to do. For me personally, I'd say no. I'd say for the vast majority of people, probably not the right thing to do. But I think for some people it is. It is the right choice, you know? And I think people are maybe a little bit too scared to acknowledge that. Doing math is truly what's gonna make them happy, and that's all I care about, dude. Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? You know, it's all I care about. It's all I care about for your life. Is if you're happy and fulfilled, and if you're happy and fulfilled doing meth, then so be it. And I will tolerate that. I will tolerate your existence to an extent. To an extent, I'll tolerate your existence, but yeah. But if you're like a liberal arts philosophy professor, I won't tolerate that. I will tolerate, the people living in abandoned row houses, just snorting fucking crystals off a piece of dirty drywall. I will, I will tolerate that. But if you're out here You know what I mean? Just spreading your bullshit. I'm not gonna, right? Like meth heads, they don't, I've never had a meth head come up to me and be like, you need to do meth. But I have had people, like these environmental people or like these hardcore religious people, you know what I mean? They're screaming in the streets, holding up flyers or whatever, being like, you need to join my cause. You need to join the cause of, anti-global warming or Christianity or Islam or whatever the fuck. I've never had a meth head do that. They do scream in the streets a lot. That is a it is a common pastime. That is a common practice of their people, of that culture. But they're not screaming, that we need to join their coalition. They're screaming about, the shadow people that follow them around all day. And look, maybe there is, dude. After learning about quantum physics, maybe there is some sort of weird extra dimensional shadow people that follow these guys around all day. And they just really like fucking with meth heads. And that kind of makes me like the shadow people a little bit because that does sound like a lot of fun. Just following around a meth head all day and like whispering in his ear, like, like that. That sounds like a fun pastime, dude. Because that's good old fashioned bullying. That's just good old fashioned, dunking a dweeb's head in a toilet, or going up to a dweeb and being like, "Oh, you miss your mommy? Where's your mommy at?" His mom died of cancer, and you're just walking up to him and being like, "Oh, your mommy, was she in the hospital? Was she sick?" It's just good old fashioned American bullying, dude. That's what the shadow people are doing when they follow these meth heads around all day and like whisper violent thoughts into their ears. They're just fucking with them, dude. They're just the Nelk boys. That's all they are. The shadow people are just the Nelk boys, getting up in these people's ears, being like, "Hey, you need to go scream at a child in the street. You need to go find a child that's in a stroller and scream in his face." It's just they're just the Nelk boys, dude. They're just like a shadow dimension version of the Nelk boys. Being like, yo, you see this guy? He's already tweaking. Let's go fuck with him real quick. That's all the shadow people are. They're just the fifth dimensional Nelk boys. They all have Canadian accents. Yeah, what's up? Let's go fuck with this guy. That's all they are. They're all Steve will do it. They're all fucking Kyle. It's just the Nelk boys, the shadow dimension Nelk boys, following these guys around all day and like moaning in their ears and whatever the fuck else the Nelk boys do. Just, just fucking with these people all day, just bullying them, just all day. Just just calling them gay. Just just following these guys around all day. These meth heads that are like twitching their way down the streets, just like twitching their way down the streets, and the fucking shadow dimension Nelk boys go, yo, I'm gonna go call this guy gay. Let's see what he thinks. That's what happens when they scream. When you're walking down really any city street in America at this point, and you see a meth head just yeah, just start screaming. It's because a shadow dimension Nelk boy just called him gay. That's all it is, dude. It's just the shadow dimension Nelk boys being like, how do we get subscribers, dude? How do we sell fucking shadow dad seltzers? Let's go fuck with meth heads and fucking record it and post it on Shadow Dimension YouTube. And that's beautiful as well. That's also a great way to spend your life, dude. Fucking with drug addicts is a fun thing to do, dude. Like that's always been a dream of mine to like walk down Skid Row with a backpack full of Narcan and just like spray it in people's noses, dude. Like these guys that aren't like overdosing, right? Because that's what Narcan is for. That's how Narcan works. If you don't know Narcan, aka Noxolone, something like that. It's this drug that when someone's having an overdose, specifically an opioid, opiate, opiate, however the fuck, whatever the fuck the word is, when they're having an overdose on some sort of like opioid drug, you spray it in their nose and essentially it flushes all the opioids from their brain. And so it works when a person is having an overdose, but it also works if they're having just a nice chill high. If they're just like nodding off in the street, just like completely like the bliss. You know what I mean? The goal of their every day their goal is to just have like a nice fucking like just nod off in the street, just do the Fenty fold in the street. That's these people's goal every single day. And if you have a little bit of Narcan, you can spray it in their nose and just ruin their whole fucking day, dude. That's what you're doing. Basically, what you're doing when you're doing that, to like give the common people an example, is just making like standstill traffic at 8 a.m. You're just making You're basically just ruining their entire day, just making them so goddamn angry. And that has always been a dream of mine. To just walk around with like a garbage bag full of Narcan and just spray it up their noses, being like, day ruined. Just not in my neighborhood. And I think that is a more effective deterrent than just arresting these people and throwing them in jail. You know, is just walking around every day. Just if you live in like Seattle or Portland or San Francisco or one of these cities where it's just all over the city is just people doing fentanyl all day, and you're like, I want to clean up my neighborhood, but the cops won't do anything. And even if they do anything, these people are going to be out of jail in a month or whatever, and they're just going to be right back in this fucking street doing what they're doing. If you if you want to cause change in your community, dude, if you be the change you want to see in the world and start walking around with a backpack full of Narcan and spray it up these people's noses. And Narcan is fairly expensive, but in these like lib ass cities, like I was saying, Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, I think even probably in New York, Philadelphia as well, really any city, you're gonna be able to find some sort of nonprofit, some sort of, quote unquote harm reduction nonprofit that's giving out Narcan for free. So just take their free Narcan and just, I mean, it is harm reduction. I mean, I'm reducing the harm that these people are causing to my neighborhood. You know what I mean? These junkies that live in my neighborhood, that kids have to walk past every single day to go to school. I'm reducing the harm that they're doing to this community. So if you think about it, you're really not even being dishonest when you ask for that Narcan. You really are reducing harm, just not in the way that you think they are or they think you are. And I think, it's always been a dream of mine because I hate these harm reduction people. We need to reduce the harm. It's like, dude, these people chose this lifestyle. Look, for whatever the reason is behind it, I know a lot of people will be like, oh, they had abusive childhoods, they had rough upbringings, oh, they were abused, they're traumatized or whatever. I don't really give a shit, man. I'm gonna be, whenever I hear that, I'm like, yeah, man, I don't care what their fucking backstory is. I'm gonna be 100% honest, right? Like you never hear anyone doing that for Jeff Bezos or whatever, or like the DuPont family who like poison rivers in West Virginia. You never hear anyone being like, "Oh, well, the DuPonts, that they have like a history of schizophrenia in their family and stuff like that." Like, and that's true, by the way. Like the DuPont, specifically John DuPont, who was the Foxcatcher guy, if you've ever seen that movie. That guy, he had schizophrenia. He was like a paranoid schizophrenic, and he also poisoned a bunch of rivers in Kentucky and Ohio and shit like that. But you never hear these people like defending them. So, I'm going to defend the billionaires. Jeff Bezos had a rough upbringing. Jeff Bezos, the reason he makes everyone work for $2 an hour is because he was traumatized as a child, all right? He had religious trauma as a child. He was forced to go to church, all right? And that's why Jeff Bezos needs to have $1 trillion and ruin everyone else's life. And that's really not even that crazy of a comparison if you think about it, because these junkies, they are ruining everyone else's life. You'll hear people being like, "Oh, well, what effect are they having on your life?" I don't know, man. It just ruins my fucking day seeing a human being rot to death in the streets. I'd say that has a pretty substantial impact on people's lives, right? Like it just it does. It's these people that are like, an equivalent of that would be like, oh, well, what impact does Israel have on Gaza's life, right? Like they're living their lives. Why do you care what they're doing? It's like, well, they're causing carnage in the streets, and that's what these junkies are doing as well. They're causing carnage in the streets. Like you see some of these dudes. Look up like a video of Kensington Avenue in Philadelphia. That shit's carnage. That it literally looks like a fucking war zone. There's there's like dead bodies strewn in the streets in a lot of these fucking cities. There's carnage out there, literal death in the fucking streets because of these people, and everyone wants to be, or not everyone, a very small subsect of, people who went to small liberal arts colleges in the Midwest or in the Northwest or wherever the fuck. A small group of those people want to like defend this behavior or like say it's okay. Somehow it's not in any way, shape, or form okay. It like seriously, it really isn't okay at all. It's just carnage in the fucking streets, in San Francisco and Los Angeles, in these, big American cities. It's carnage in the fucking streets. And it's like, yeah, if I want to walk around, ruin these guys' highs all day and have them, go somewhere else, I don't know. I don't think that's the end of the world. I would say that's a little bit of community service. You know what I mean? You're cleaning up the trash, the human trash. And that's what it is. People, oh, you're dehumanizing them. They've dehumanized themselves already. I'm just dehumanizing them, not even more. I'm not dehumanizing them anymore. They've already dehumanized themselves by choosing this lifestyle. And you can have sympathy for them. You can have sympathy for these people and be like, they had horrible fucking upbringings, and the only way they knew to escape their awful realities was to do drugs. You can acknowledge that while also saying, but I don't give a shit about that. Or, yeah, I don't give a shit about that. And I don't want them in my fucking neighborhood. Both of those things can be true at the same time. It can be true that these people were horribly abused and horribly traumatized and they're mentally ill, and that the only way that they can escape all that awfulness is by doing drugs. That can be true, but it can also be true that, I mean, I can't do anything fucking about that. I can't, like, these people, you send these people, it, it's fucking insane. It's really insane when you hear, like, it's liberals doing it. I'm not one of those guys like, oh, it's always the goddamn libs' fault. In this situation, it is all the goddamn libs' fault. You know what I mean? You never hear a guy with a Trump flag being like, you know what I think? I think we need to send that guy to counseling. That guy that sits in the fucking downtown all day and twitches. You know what that guy needs? That guy needs to go to a therapist. That guy needs some psychoanalysis, all right? Maybe he needs to be put on Zoloft or Klonopin or whatever. We need to give him some sort of psychoactive prescription drug. You never hear a fucking Republican saying that shit. You never hear a conservative of any kind. You really don't hear a lot of people on the left saying that either. It's just like a very small subsect of people, but it's a pretty loud, annoying, somewhat powerful subsect of people that are doing that shit. And it's like, it's just ridiculous that they think that. They think they're going to put these people in a, they're going to send them to like some therapist who went to Yale or whatever, and they're just going to magically wake up one day and be perfectly okay. They're not. At a certain point, your body becomes so physically addicted to the drug, your brain becomes so addicted to it that even if you move past all that trauma somehow, even if by some fucking miracle you go to counseling, 5 days a week, 7 days a week for 8 hours a day, which is what it would take. Well, seriously, like some of these people are so fucked up, it would take 60 hours of fucking counseling a week to get them to move past that shit. If they move past it at all. And if by some miracle they do, they at that point are so physically addicted to the drug, so mentally addicted to it, that they're not going to stop doing it. That's it's like they're not. They love it, or they just need it. They need it. It to them it feels like hunger. It's like when you're hungry, you're gonna go fucking eat, or you have like a compulsion to eat. That's how these people live every single day. Even the ones that aren't on the drugs anymore, they live every single day with just like a fucking a twisting stomach of hunger inside of them. You know what I mean? When like you haven't eaten in a day or whatever, and your stomach is just all knotted up and you're nauseous and you feel like shit. That's how these people live every single day. And so, however much fucking counseling you want to give them, they're still going to be addicted to the fucking drug. Even if they're off it, even if it's completely out of their system and they haven't done it in years, they're still addicted to it in a certain way. They still have that thing inside of them that says, go do that drug, go do it. And I think these people just don't realize that. They don't know what addiction is. Like somehow, by some miracle, these people who claim to be, addiction specialists or whatever, these people who run these nonprofits, they don't understand what addiction is. They can't comprehend that it it's almost like it's not even a choice, right? Like you don't choose to be hungry. I guess in a certain way you do choose to be hungry by not eating. And I guess some people don't have food to eat. If anyone in Africa is listening to this, I guess that doesn't apply to you as much. you don't you don't choose to have the feeling of hunger, right? It's not like a conscious decision. It's not like you, you haven't eaten in 12 hours and then you think, "Oh, I haven't eaten in 12 hours. It's time to be hungry." And that's not how addiction works either. It's not how their addiction works. It's always there. It's always that like nagging little, mm, go do a little toot of meth. It's just how they work. I'm sorry they work that way. I really wish they didn't have to. Maybe there's other things to do in society that can prevent that from happening in the future, but just letting them rot to death in the streets and giving them fresh needles and fucking free fentanyl, probably in some cases, that's not going to help them at all. It's just not. There's really, and it's not nice to say, but there's nothing you can do to help them. I wish there was. I was I wish there was, dude. I wish we could get these dudes addicted to fucking gambling or something else, right? I wish we could get them addicted to the fucking slots at blackjack and shit like that. I wish we could, dude, and just have them like, go to the casino every day with Monopoly money and have them addicted to that. I wish we could do that, but you just can't. It's not the way that their brains work. And anyone that does that is off drugs, they'll tell you, yeah, they want to do drugs because drugs fucking rule. They don't do it for no reason. That's the other thing. These people, they don't get high for no reason. It's not like they just woke up one day and they were like, I'm going to be a junkie. They get high because they really fucking enjoy doing it. Right? And that's the other thing that like I don't think these people fully understand. I don't think these people fully understand that they enjoy doing it. They enjoy living this lifestyle. Like I said, these methods, they're making $40,000 a year to support their habit. They could go out and just stop doing meth and get in a fucking apartment or whatever and then, just chill like that, but they don't because they love doing meth. They love it, and you're probably not ever gonna convince them not to do it because they've been doing it for so long. Their brains have literally been altered. That's another thing. Their brains, it's not like a temporary alteration where it's like after a while their brains can return to normal. Especially with meth, they can't. Their brains can never return to that pre-meth state. And so they're just gonna always be addicted to it. And it sucks. Sucks that they are, but it is what it is, dude. And with that being said, that's what I'm saying. We need to appreciate the good things that they have, the knowledge, the skills, the dedication that they have. We're never going to get them off meth, dude. They're going to be fucking addicted to meth forever. They love doing it. But we need to, instead of being like, oh, you need to go see a social worker and you need to get off meth. No, dude, that's some gay ass little fucking bullshit. You know what I mean? We need to stop doing that and start learning from these people. All right, start learning from their experiences in life. Start learning about the dedication they have, dude. Not a lot of people have that dedication. Those guys wake up in the morning and they go to sleep thinking precisely about one thing. It's all they think about all day, dude. Really, not a lot of people have that dedication. You know what I mean? Even like these Wall Street guys, these guys that work at fucking Goldman Sachs and fucking what's Warren Buffett's company's name? Whatever the fuck it's called. These people that like work in Wall Street or whatever the fuck. They don't even have that type of dedication, right? Like the American Psycho type guys. They don't have that level of dedication that these people have to meth. And if they did, the GDP of this country would quadruple in a week if they had the dedication to, investing in stocks and finance and whatever the fuck else, increasing shareholder value. If they had an addiction, if these fucking Wall Street guys had an addiction to increasing shareholder value, the way that these other guys have an addiction to meth, holy shit, dude, this country would be, I mean, we'd be on fucking Mars right now. We, right? Like if guys that worked at NASA woke up in the morning, they woke up at fucking 6 in the morning, dude, just itching their necks, being like, how can I get to Mars? If they had that type of dedication to it, dude, we would be in Star Wars right now. So instead of looking at these guys and being like, oh, you need to go to a therapist, you need to go to a counselor so that you can get off meth. No, dude. We need to put these guys in a fucking lab, give them as much meth as possible, and start taking notes. All right, because these guys have a dedication to something that most people will never have in their entire lives. Okay, they have a fucking love of the game, and like these other guys, like you talk to a fucking meth head, what hobbies do you have? That guy doesn't have any fucking hobbies. He's not out there fly fishing in Colorado or whatever. He's not going on ski trips and shit. But you talk to like a NASA scientist and you go, what hobbies do you have? He's probably going to be like, oh, I like playing video games and I like Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer 40K. Enough of that shit, dude. No hobbies for you. Listen here, nerd. Get in that goddamn laboratory and figure out how to make me a goddamn lightsaber, okay? It's the type of dedication you need to have. And I think we can learn from these people. And instead of trying to change them to, I don't know, make them happier human beings instead of instead of trying to end their addiction and make them happy, healthy human beings, we need to learn from them. We need to start taking notes, being like, how can I apply this to my life? How can I apply this guy's dedication to my passion in life? And I think we start with NASA because I want to go to space, dude. I want to go to space so fucking bad. I know a lot of people are like, I'd never go to space. That's scary as shit, dude. I want to go to space so fucking bad, dude. I want to see what it's like to piss in space. I want to know what it's like to shit in space. I want to know what it's like to jizz in space. I want to know fucking everything about space, dude. I want to be floating around, chilling. I just want to know. Just take me to space, dude. All right, and that's never gonna happen. I'm never gonna be able to go to space. I'm too dumb to ever become an astronaut, right? I won't ever have the dedication or skills to ever become an astronaut. But you know what might happen? What might just happen, dude? If a miracle happens, if this little miracle happens, if these fucking NASA dweebs start acting like meth heads and just wake up at the crack of dawn and work for, 14 hours a day, figuring out how to make rocket ships and whatever the fuck else they do, I really have no idea. But if they can figure that shit out, I'm going to space, baby. And that's what I need. All right. I need to go to space. I need a fucking NASA scientist to to have a sit down conversation with a meth head and learn dedication. Because these guys aren't dedicated to it, dude. If we were really dedicated to it, like I said, we'd be on Mars by now, dude. We'd be on Saturn, dude. If they had the type of if these NASA nerds had the type of dedication that meth heads have, I'd be on fucking Pandora right now, making love to a seven or not seven, like 12 foot tall Navi woman. But they don't. All right, they don't. They don't have that type of dedication. They don't have that deep desire in them. They don't have that wake up at the crack of dawn, work your ass off all day, get 6 hours of goddamn sleep, wake up the next day and do the same thing. They don't have that type of dedication, and that's the reason I'm not on Pandora right now, making beautiful, sweet love with 12 foot tall Navi woman. And I'll always hate them for that. I'll always harbor a deep grudge and hatred of these people because they don't have the dedication to it, dude. And that's why I'll never hate a meth head. You'll never catch me hating on a meth head, dude. Even when I was talking a little bit of shit about him, saying, hey, they're always going to be the same person, I wasn't hating on him, dude. Fuck it. That's your game, dude. You chose that game. You're dedicated to the fucking game, dude. Become the LeBron of it. Become the Jordan of it. Become the greatest of all time. If you're going to do it, dude. Hey, ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. If you're going to do it, do it. And I think that's an important lesson we have to learn from these people. And no one else will acknowledge that. No one else will understand the love of the game that they have, dude. Like like I said, when I did this episode about copper, right? The economics of copper, white trash Wall Street. It's a hit in the community. I posted it on the meth subreddit. And you know what the meth subreddit didn't do? They didn't go in the comments being like, haha, so funny. Love it, dude. We love copper. We love stealing copper. They didn't do that. You know what they did? They banned me from the goddamn subreddit. They said, enough of that shit, dude. This isn't about meth. This isn't about meth, all right? And that's all we care about. They banned me from the subreddit because I don't have the type of dedication that they have. And I appreciate them for that. I appreciate them for being steadfast in their beliefs and saying, no, no, this isn't about meth. We don't give a shit about this. We don't give a shit about copper, dude. Copper's just a way to get meth. We don't give a fuck about copper, dude. Whatever means necessary, dude. They're Malcolm X. They're they're Malcolm by any means. They're all Malcolm by any means, dude. By any means necessary. They don't give a fuck about copper, and they banned me for it. And I appreciate them. I appreciate them for that. At first I was angry. I was slightly resentful towards them. I was like, why did they? I was just trying to make a joke. But now I understand. I understand. Hey, no time for joking around here. All right, there's no time for that shit. We don't have time for funny ha-has. We got to focus on getting that good blue crystal and having the shadow man whisper in our ears all day. That's what we're focused on. And I like them for that. I appreciate them as a community. Not often do I go from not understanding a community in any way, shape, or form to fully being supportive of them. Really doesn't happen often for me. But now I appreciate them. And not just the meth people, the fentanyl people as well. The fentanyl people are a bit more whiny. They're a bit more like a lot of the harm reduction things are focused towards fentanyl addicts and stuff like that. They are a bit more whiny, a bit more lazy. They just kind of take naps all day. They don't really, they're nocturnal creatures in a certain way. They're kind of like teenagers, you know what I mean? They stay up all night, stealing construction equipment and stuff like that, and then they get high all day. And I don't know. I don't like that as much. I do see the appreciation and the desire to get high, and I understand it, but I don't like them as much. They're not as dedicated to the fucking craft as these meth heads are, dude. They aren't. And I think it reflects. I think it reflects in just the way they live their lives. Like the fentanyl addicts, they all live in like big cities. They all live in big fucking liberal cities where they know they're not going to face any repercussions for their actions. But these meth heads, dude, they live in the cities. Some of them live in the cities, but some of them live in the countryside. Some of them live in more rural areas and stuff like that. Some of them live out there and, you know, and just about anywhere they live, they're going to be getting high. They're going to be, they're going to be smoking meth. And I see them and I appreciate them, you know? I see you and I acknowledge you and I acknowledge your lived experience. Okay. And yeah, you just need to learn from them. But that was about, I don't even fucking know how long that was. I talked about that shit for a minute, dude. And that wasn't even the plan coming in, dude. The plan was the usual plan. We were going to talk about Jews for a little bit, and then switch over to the Indians and maybe hit a little bit of Muslim talk. That was the usual plan, nothing new going into this one. But hey, hey, take notes, dude. Take notes. Whip out that fucking notebook, that pen, and start writing shit down because these people have something to say and they're not wrong about everything. They're wrong about a lot. They're wrong about a fair bit of things. They're wrong about just the way they live their lives in general, but somewhere in there, dude, somewhere in that pile of mud, there's a little gold nugget of truth and of knowledge and of wisdom. All right? Fuck Gary V. I don't care about that guy. I want Gary M. M for meth. That's who I want, dude. I want Gary M. going around doing a fucking countrywide tour, teaching me teaching me how to live that lifestyle, dude. Not how to do meth. I know how to do meth. Everyone knows how to do it. We've all seen Breaking Bad, but teaching me how to gain the dedication that they have. That's what I want. I don't want some fucking nerd who just scams people with crypto constantly coming up being like, all right, and here's how you make money. I don't want that fucking guy. I don't want some guy coming up on stage pushing up his glasses being like, it's time to learn, everybody. Let's learn about crypto. Let's learn about NFTs. I don't want that dweeb. I want a real man. I want a real methed up man coming up on stage just screaming, already screaming, just that's if I don't hear that at the beginning of a motivational speech, I'm walking out of the goddamn room because I know that's not a real person who's dedicated to their game, you know? Hey, like it or not, I'm speaking truth here. Speaking truth about the meth addicts. But today's episode is about current events, and a nice current event going on right now is it's a nice cool day. I don't know how warm it is outside. I think it's about 75 degrees. Probably a really good day for fishing, but I don't really feel like going fishing today because there was an insane lightning storm last night, dude. The most absurd lightning storm I've ever seen in my life, dude. Just I was scared standing outside, dude. Like I have dogs, right? And one of my old dogs, she died, but I mean, she was terrified of the thunder. And even the one we have now, that guy's not a big fan of the thunder. And I used to be like, shut up, you dumb fucking dog, dude. What are you worried about? It's just thunder. Who gives a shit? But looking at that storm last night, I was like, dude, I'm starting to understand your point a little bit here. I'm starting I'm starting to see where you're coming from, dude, because that I was like standing outside and I was like, dude, we might get got, dude. We might all get turned into a fucking bucket of KFC because this thing it was crazy. It was like lighting up the entire sky, dude. Like literally the entire sky. Like even where the lightning, like miles away, it was lighting up the sky. It was insane to watch. And lucky for us, I don't think maybe one or two came down, but it was mostly up in the clouds. You know what I mean? It wasn't coming down and hitting the trees and the telephone poles. The power did go out for a little bit, and I did hear a noise, so maybe it hit a power line, but then it was back up and running at like 7 a.m. So I don't think it like actually destroyed anything. I think it was just tickling it a little bit. You know what I mean? Tickling the power lines a little bit, being like, I'm gonna turn all your power off. I think I think that's what the lightning did. Because I came back on, or I got back up, dude. It happened at about 3 in the morning. I got up about 7, and the power was back on, dude. I was like, yes, dude, I could fucking goon again. And that was my main concern, dude, because that's why I was up at 3 in the morning in the first place. I was watching a Bella Danger x Adriana Chechnik 4-hour goon compilation. That's what I was doing. And it ruined it for me, dude. I don't have fast enough mobile coverage. I need that Wi-Fi, dude. I need an Ethernet cable. I had an Ethernet cable hooked up directly to my phone. so that I could watch a 4 hour sissy hypno goon compilation. I just woke up. The lightning hit the whatever the fuck it hit, and it woke me up. But yeah, no, I understand where dogs are coming from now a little bit more. But here's the other thing about it is they've never seen some shit like that. Like a dog, I know my dog certainly hasn't. That motherfucker spent his whole life inside, dude. He's never seen that shit before. So yeah, I don't really see where he's coming from. Maybe it's some sort of ancestral blood memory, but yeah, don't get the guy. I'm like, dude, you didn't see the lightning though. Like you're scared of it, and I can kind of understand where you're coming from now a little bit, but you didn't see the lightning that I saw. So it's like, why are you scared of it? Mm. Yeah, I might have to have a little, talk with him, a little performance review with him, being like, hey man, I understand where you're coming from now. You know, just a touch, dude. I just understand you slightly. But you never seen the lightning before, dude. You never saw what I saw. So I'm gonna need you to stop your bitching real quick. And also, you're in the house, dude. I might have to explain electricity to him. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe it's my fault that he's scared of the lightning and the thunder and all that because he doesn't understand how electricity works. Because even if lightning strikes the house, it's it's gonna be scary. It's gonna be a nice loud noise, you know. He's a dog, he's got sensitive ears, so he might have some ringing in his ears for a little bit, might start a little bit of a fire, but it's raining outside, so the fire's gonna go out instantly anyway. So I might need to, explain how lightning and electricity works to him. It can't travel through wood, dude. It's not gonna shock you. So just chill out a little bit. Chill out, dude. Might have to have a little bit of a performance review. Might have to call HR on it. Be like, hey, man, HR, you need to have a talk with this guy because I don't think he understands how electricity works. But that's not the focus of today's episode. We're an hour in and now we're getting to the actual episode. Oh, and this is a funny thing. So I did that Fortnite episode uh whenever I did it Tuesday, maybe it was yesterday. I don't really remember, but I did that Fortnite episode. Um and like you can look on Spotify, you can look at like the analytics of like when people watch it and when people stop watching it. And for like the first half hour or 40 minutes or whatever it was, I was just talking about complete nonsense. And then I started talking about Fortnite and like the drop off of when I started talking about Fortnite, it was like everyone stopped listening. It was like the funniest thing I've ever seen. I was like, oh, no one cares about Fortnite, dude. No one cares about my Fortnite opinion. And that did hurt a little bit, dude. I would say that hurt more than getting removed from the meth subreddit. That is what it is. So today's first article is coming from you from ABC, American Broadcasting Company, something like that. And the headline is Jesus goddamn Christ, dude. Everything is a fucking ad, and I'm gonna kill Jeff Bezos, and I'm gonna become Ted Kaczynski. All right, so Trump facing MAGA uproar over Epstein files tries to shift blame elsewhere. He alleged without evidence that former Biden officials doctored the files. Dude, he's in a tizzy, dude. Trump, I think for the first time, we're seeing Trump truly panic, you know? Trump is one of these guys. Like you watch the debates, you watch really anything with Trump. He's fine with having his back against the wall, dude. You know, he's Muhammad Ali. He can float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, dude. He can shuck and jive. He can dodge all the punches that you're throwing at his head. But I think we're seeing him like actually panicked for the first time because he's up against the ropes and he ain't fighting no tomato can or whatever. He's fighting Mike Tyson right now. And that's exactly where Mike Tyson wants you to be. He wants you to be up against the ropes and you're not going to be able to avoid his punches. So, facing uproar in his MAGA base over the Jeffrey Epstein files, President Donald Trump continues to try to shift blame for the controversy to others, including onto Biden administration officials over what he calls a hoax. Trump in a phone interview with Just the News. God damn it, dude. Trump's doing FM radio call-ins. That's more concerning than anything else I've ever heard, dude. Trump is calling in to 96.5 The Buzz. He's calling in to 102.1 The Rock, being like, listen here, it's bullshit. I was never on that island. The island doesn't even exist. It's Atlantis. It sunk into the ocean. It doesn't even exist anymore. God damn it, Trump's doing that shit. That's more concerning than anything else, dude. Trump is calling in to fucking 98.3 The Vibe, promoting his tour dates. That's very concerning. So Trump in a phone interview with Just the News on Real America's Voice on Wednesday night alleged without providing evidence that Democrats and former officials doctored files relating to the disgraced financier and convicted sex offender. I don't know why they're still bothering calling him his financier. We know Jeffrey Epstein knows nothing about finance. We know people just gave him billions of dollars that so he could sex traffic kids. We know that's true. We know Jeffrey Epstein wasn't watching the watching the charts, being like buy low, sell high, buy low. We know he wasn't doing that. No one believes that bullshit story anymore. No one believes that he was like managing people's money. That we know that's not true. I don't know why they're trying to like lie about it. We know he was a fucking idiot. He's one of the dumbest. He's a patsy. That's what Jeffrey Epstein is. Jeffrey Epstein, yeah, he was probably doing a little bit running this operation. He was definitely a gigantic piece of shit. But at the end of the day, he was a patsy. He was just a dumb moron that they put in there to be like, here's $1 billion, Jeff. If you get caught, you don't know us. That's all Jeffrey Epstein was. He was he was literally just like a moron who was who that they there was some guy behind the shadows pulling the strings, and Jeffrey Epstein was just the face of it. He's like a Sam Bankman-Fried or whatever. Sam Bankman-Fried wasn't running XTX or XTC, whatever the fuck it's got. I don't know. I don't give a shit about crypto, but like he wasn't running that shit, dude. He was 20 years old and he was popping Viagra and Blue Chew and fucking all day. All right, that's what Sam Bankman-Fried was doing. He wasn't running that shit. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't either. Yeah, he was a piece of shit. He indulged in it. He was the face of it. He was involved in it 100%, but he wasn't running that shit. That guy was a moron. That guy was an idiot. He was not running it. He wasn't even running the finance accounts. There's no way they would have trusted him with that money. A guy this stupid, and that's the thing. Like he had an island. Jeffrey Epstein had an island where he could sexually abuse children. It's true. It's what he had. And this guy's so stupid. He was chilling in Palm Beach, walking up to like a random 14-year-olds, being like, "You want to give me a hand job?" That's how stupid this guy was. If you seriously think he was running this fucking operation, I have no words for you. This guy was an idiot, and he was just a patsy. They were just like, "Hey, put it all on Jeff." You know what I mean? Make a paper trail and make it all lead back to Jeff because this guy's just an idiot. He's not going to be able to run anything real in the first place. So just have it all lead back to Jeff. All right. It's anyway. The comments came when Trump was asked if he wanted one prosecutor to look into the broad subject of political prosecution. Well, I think it's in the case of Epstein. They've already looked at it and they are looking at it. And I think all they have to do is just put out anything credible Trump said. I would say the credibility, y- y- there's credible evidence out there. The credible evidence is the testimonies of many, 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 many women who will testify to this fact. Uh, yeah, the credible evidence is out there. The credible evidence is that he was incredibly close to many powerful people. The credible evidence is that he was arrested for sexually abusing children. The credible evidence is that the the witnesses that are putting out these testimonies say that they were abused by powerful figures. The that's the evidence. And I mean, Trump, he must have been doing all sorts of things on that island to be able to go for him to be going this hard against it, dude, he must have been doing some vile things on that island, dude. We're talking Frazzle Drip 2.0. And if you don't know, Frazzle Drip is an alleged blackmail video of Hillary Clinton and Anthony Weiner's wife, who is Hillary Clinton's aide, uh, eating a child alive and wearing its face as a mask, dude. Trump must have been doing that times fucking 10, dude. Because, I mean, this is not like Trump. This is not like him to be just like stammering over his words like that. To be to be anything other than 100% confident is not Donald Trump, and that's how he's acting right now. So this guy, he must have been on that island. I mean, just a spit through fucking an 8-year-old from Guatemala, roasting that kid over the fire, basting it with barbecue sauce. That's seriously, there must be a video of Trump doing that for him to be acting like this. So anyway, but that was run by the Biden administration for 4 years. I can imagine what they put into files, just like they did with the others. Trump continued. I mean, the Steele dossier was totally fake, right? It took 2 years to figure that out for the people, and all of the things that you mentioned were fake. So I would imagine if they were run by Chris Wray and they were run by Comey. And because it was actually even before that administration, they've been running these files. And so much of the things that we found were fake with me, Trump said. Despite Trump's claims that Democrats put things into files, many documents relating to Epstein, including those that mention Trump and several prominent Democrats, have been public for years. He's in a blender, dude. This is the first time Donald Trump has ever been scared, dude. This is Buster Douglas against Mike Tyson right now. Mike Tyson was a monster for his entire career, dude. He got out of jail and he fought Buster Douglas in the best shape of his life. And he was like, you know what? I'm gonna run right through Buster Douglas. And Buster Douglas, this absolute nobody, dude. Buster Douglas was a fucking nobody. Knocks down Mike Tyson, dude. You're knocking that. Seriously, when you have Trump panic like that, you're knocking down Mike Tyson. Trump is the goat of just being completely unbothered and having 100% confidence no matter the situation. Whether you like him or not, you can despise him, think he's the worst person on the face of the planet, worst person ever. But what he's the best at is just being 100% confident in himself. But you got him a little bit shook here, dude. You got him up against the ropes and you're about to get a knockout. I mean, I didn't think they would do it. I did not think that the Democrats would be able to do it. To be able to turn a pretty probably substantial amount of devout Trump supporters against him, and they're doing it, dude. They called him on it. They kind of called him on his bluff, being like, "You're not gonna put that shit out, dude. We know you're not." They literally bitched him, dude. And that just I mean, Trump went from ruling so hard. Trump went from being like the coolest fucking guy ever. Whether you love him or hate him, he was pretty fucking cool. He didn't give a fuck. He just walked around, big swinging dick in town. Went from that to being like, oh, it's fake and no, that's not real. Like that's what he's doing right now. He's panicked. They got him in a blender, dude. The bitch ass libs with their fucking horn rimmed glasses and their Starbucks and wherever the fuck else they have. They came out swinging and they got a knockdown on Donald Trump. He's not knocked out yet, dude. He's not, make no mistake. Donald Trump is not knocked out yet. I think a lot of people are viewing this as a victory when it's not. It's not a victory quite yet, but they got him up against the ropes, dude. They got people being like, what? What's going on? They didn't really get it. They didn't really get, the knockout and the reaction that they expected, with the whole economy thing. When the economy didn't really improve under Trump, th- immediately when he's only been in office for like 6 months, when the economy didn't improve instantly under Trump, they thought they had a knockdown there, and they didn't. And I think this might be another example of this. When they think they've got him knocked out, they think they've got Trump, TKO'd on the ground. He's not going to be able to get up, by the time the count finishes. But he's not, dude. He's not out yet. You can never count him out. You gotta have some sort of finishing blow, dude. One of these people, they need to figure out how to release compromising information about Donald Trump without compromising all the other Democrats who did the exact same thing that he did. Right? Because that's the other thing. That's why nobody has released these files yet. That's why Donald Trump won't, is because they all did it. They were all a part of it, whether it was with Epstein or at Bohemian Grove or at, what is it? Tierra del Mar, whatever the fuck, wherever they did it at, they're all in some way involved in this. And that's why they won't release the files. That's why Trump won't release the files. But if they can come up with some kind of scheme, dude, if they can pull something out of their ass, and it's gonna be tough, dude. It's the Democrats, even the men have a lot of things in their asses. They have a lot of things up their butts. But if they can somehow manage to pull something out of their butt, dude, if they can make their way past that LED white dudes for Harris butt plug, if they could make it past that and pull something out and manage to release compromising information about Donald Trump without not compromising the entire Democratic Party, because they were all involved in it, dude, and don't think that they weren't. If they can do that, it's the ultimate knockout, dude. It's the ultimate victory. It's I mean, yeah, you're winning the Revolutionary War. You're doing something no one thought in the history. No one thought this would be possible. No one thought you would be able to turn people against Donald Trump. No one thought you would be able to turn some of his devout fans against him, and they've already managed to do that. And they might pull off the impossible, dude. Tonight might be the night. Tonight might be the fucking night that the impossible happens and the world is shocked and Buster Douglas wins against Mike Tyson. That might happen. That might happen. All right, now on to the next article. We started off with ABC and now we're on to CNN. So we're only getting more lib from here, dude. We're getting Next article is going to be from BuzzFeed. We're all getting more lib. So this is from CNN, and the title of this article is Not Trump's Dumping Ground: Outrage Over Arrival of Foreign U.S. Deportees in Tiny African Nation. So, across Africa and in the tiny nation of Eswatini, fury has erupted over the arrival of foreign deportees from the United States after its government confirmed that migrants described by the Department of Homeland Security spokesperson as depraved monsters had been sent there as prisoners. Roughly the size of New Jersey, Eswatini, formerly Swaziland, is governed by a monarch who has absolute power. Yeah, I think it's the only absolute monarchy left in the world. On Wednesday, officials said that five deportees from the U.S. were now being held in isolated units in jails, acknowledging widespread concern, but insisting the deported men posed no threat to the country or its citizens. Dude, libs, you gotta stop focusing on the whole deportation thing. I'm sorry, I know it's something you care about. Listen, I know. I know all the dudes out there with receding hairlines who have wives that cheat on them constantly. I know they, for some reason, really care about the illegal immigrants, but you have to stop focusing on it, dude. Go full force into Epstein. They probably won't because, like I said, they're involved in it too. Bottom line, they're involved in it as well. But just stop focusing on illegal immigrants, dude, because even Africa, Eswatini, I did an episode about Lesotho, which is it's very close to Eswatini, and it's kind of similar in the sense that it's a very small country near South Africa. So I imagine Eswatini is somewhat similar to it in certain senses. I'm sure it's extremely poor and stuff like that. When people in Africa, and I just say Africa and everyone cringes, they all think of, poverty and violence and extractive colonialism and corporate colonialism and stuff like that. When those people, even they're like, we don't want these guys here, you're losing your case. You're losing your argument doesn't make any sense anymore because it goes from, well, these are just good, honest, hardworking people who just so happened to break one certain law and came into this country illegally to and being like they're not violent. None of them are violent. To being like even people in Africa, an entire continent, right, that has been war torn for centuries and centuries and centuries, even people there are scared of these people. You got to choose. You got to choose. They're either all peaceful people who are just looking for a better opportunity in America, or they're violent criminals who broke the law. You can't have both, dude. You can't have Trump is deporting all these people and putting them in prison and blah, 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 blah. Oh, they're just poor, innocent people. And also be like, yeah, people in Africa, that continent where every single country sucks. Yeah, people there are scared of the fact that Donald Trump is deporting illegal immigrants to their countries. You have to choose between one of those two things. So the deportation, according to a statement by acting government spokesperson Thabili Medali, yeah, some kind of African name, was the result of months of robust high-level engagements between the U.S. and the Southern African nation. Critics of the move say it is unacceptable for Eswatini to be treated as a dumping ground for people unfit to live in the U.S. Oh my fucking God. These people. These people. I was just giving them praise. I was just talking about how Donald Trump was almost knocked out. I was just talking about how they had him up against the rope, dude, and they had him fearing for his life, dude. Trump was about to get that one in his record, dude. Trump's been like 300-0 against the Dems over the past, what is it, 8 years? It's going to be 12 years probably, let's be honest here. But over the past 8 years, he's been 300-0 against the fucking libs. And I was talking about how they might get that one, dude. And that one is a very big one, that 301, that one mark in the loss column. That's a big deal against Donald Trump. And then they turn around and do some stupid shit like this, being like, these people shouldn't be in Africa because they're dangerous, but they should be in the US. What are we doing here, guys? You can't be like, oh, alligator Alcatraz and Trump opening up these ICE prisons is the most evil thing on earth, and then turn around and be like, Trump is putting violent criminals in Africa and they're going to destroy Africa, in a continent that's already been destroyed multiple. You can't hold both of those beliefs at once and have people take you seriously. Not as a news organization and not as a political organization. As an individual, you can hold those two beliefs at once and maybe have some people take you seriously. But as a large organization like CNN and like the Democratic Party, you can't hold both of those beliefs at once. You can't be You can't be like Trump is making these prisons and he's putting people in prisons even though they didn't do anything. And then also at the same time be like, Trump is putting people in Africa, he's deporting people to Africa and he's making it more dangerous. You can't have both of those things at once, dude. It's I don't know. I don't know if they see the irony in this at all, but it is very funny. So, U.S. pressure on African countries. While the Trump administration's mass deportations to the prisons of El Salvador had made headlines around the world, the White House has also been quietly attempting to strike agreements with a number of African countries to accept deportees originally from other nations. President Donald Trump's aggressive clampdown on immigration has run into logistical hurdles, with some countries refusing to take back their nationals or only doing so on a limited basis. These people are coming from third world countries, third world countries that don't have running water or food or a cohesive society. And even they're like, no, don't give us these people back. Right? You can't write that down. You can't write an article about how that is true and also be like, well, let's just keep these people in the US. It doesn't make any sense, dude. You're literally saying these countries are saying, these third world countries are saying, these people are too, we don't want them here. We don't want these people here. They left our country and we don't want them here anymore. Third world countries are saying that. It just doesn't make any sense, dude. It doesn't make any sense to be like third world countries. They think that these people are too dangerous to have in their societies, but they're perfectly fine in a first world country. It just makes zero sense. Doesn't make any sense. So some of those approached by the US, sorry, such as Nigeria have decried being pressured to take in foreign deportees. The US is mounting considerable pressure on African countries to accept Venezuelans to be deported from the US, some straight out of prison. Nigeria's Foreign Minister Yusuf Tugar said in a televised interview last week, citing Washington's announcement of increased tariffs and recent reductions in the validity of visas. So Trump is basically saying like, hey, we're going to tax you and we're not going to let any of your people come to our country. That's what he's saying. So the U.S. mission in Nigeria insisted visa changes were not the result of any nation's stance on third world deportees, but rather to safeguard U.S. immigration systems. The Trump administration is committed to removing criminal illegal aliens from the United States, a White House official told CNN in a statement. The administration frequently engages in conversations with foreign nations on a variety of topics, but we do not share information on private discussions. And when Trump first got into office, a lot of people, even people on the right, were talking about how his crackdown on illegal immigrants was pretty brutal. Even I was like that. And I was like, Trump, you got to stop focusing on the people who are just like gardeners and plumbers and shit like that. You got to stop focusing on these guys. And I think he listened to me. I think Trump was like, you did. And he listened to me. Because now he's focusing more on the criminals. And I think that's a good, because now they're writing now he's got CNN and all like these liberal institutions in a bit of a tizzy, right? By deporting these violent criminals that their home countries won't take, by deporting them and bringing all this coverage to that, he's got them in a tizzy. And shout out to Trump. Um, yeah, I don't really have anything left. I had a few more articles opened up, but I was like, fuck it, I'm not gonna read any of those. Um, that's all I've got for today's episode, guys. We got to learn from the meth heads, all right? The libs, they've got to learn from their mistakes, dude. They've got to learn. They've got to get that knockout against Donald Trump. If they can just get that one knockout against him, it completely destroys his personality, his whole image, right? His whole image is I'm always right, I'm always confident, I never do anything wrong. But if they can get that knockout against him, dude, if they can teach this guy a fucking lesson, if they can knock out Floyd Mayweather, if they can knock out Mike Tyson, a lot of things are going to change. But Trump's got him in a tizzy too. Hey, the fight ain't over yet, dude. Make no mistake. The Epstein shit, yeah, it could become a knockout. That could, if you follow up with another combo, another jab, hook, whatever, uppercut. If you follow up with something else, the whole Epstein thing, that could be a knockout against Donald Trump. But it's not yet because Donald Trump is still fighting back, dude. He's still like, oh, you guys don't want us to deport violent criminals. You guys don't want us to deport illegal violent criminals to other countries. Hey, you got him in a tizzy, dude. I don't know if you guys heard that. My sister just came in screaming in a baby voice at my dog. Screaming, "Mommy, The screaming. Whatever. Yeah, no one's listening to this at this point, but yeah. Other than that, I hope you have a good day, a good week, a good year, a good life, a good summer. I don't know if where you're at is nice and cool like where I'm at is, but if it is, I hope you go out and enjoy that. You know what I mean? Throw out a few casts. I think I'm gonna do that tomorrow morning. I'm gonna try to get up nice and early, go to the spillway, and try to catch a few fish. Try to catch a few bluegill. But that's all I've got for today's episode, guys. Peace.